He reached the tumble-down cottage at the farther end of the street and flung himself on the battered step. Grandmère Grabert sat rocking herself to and fro, crooning a bit of song brought over from the West Indies years ago. But when the boy sat silent, his head bowed in his hands, she paused in the midst of a line and regarded him with keen, piercing eyes. Victor?" she asked. That was all, but he understood. He raised his head and waved a hand angrily down the street towards the lighted square that marked the village center. "Dos boy," he gulped. Grandmère Grabert laid a sympathetic hand on his black curls, but withdrew it the next instant. "Bien," she said angrily. "For what you go by them, eh? Why not keep to yourself? They don't want you. They don't care for you. Ain't you got no sense?" "Oh, but Grandmère," he wailed piteously. "I want for to play." The old woman stood up in the doorway, her tall, spare form towering menacingly over him. "You want for to play, eh? For why? You don't need no play. Those boy." She swept a magnificent gesture down the street. "They fools." "If I could play with," began Victor, but his grandmother caught him by the wrist and held him as in a vice. "Hush," she cried. "You must be going crazy." And still holding him by the wrist, she pulled him indoors. It was a 2-room house, bare and poor and miserable, but never had it seemed so meager before to Victor as it did this night. The supper was frugal almost to the starvation point. They ate in silence, and afterwards Victor threw himself on his cot in the corner of the kitchen and closed his eyes. Grandmère Grabert thought him asleep and closed the door noiselessly as she went into her own room. But he was awake, and his mind was like a shifting kaleidoscope of miserable incidents and heartaches. He had lived 14 years, and he could remember most of them as years of misery. He had never known a mother's love, for his mother had died, so he was told, when he was but a few months old. No one ever spoke to him of a father, and Grandmère Grabert had been all to him. She was kind, after a stern, unloving fashion, and she provided for him as best she could. He had picked up some sort of an education at the parish school. It was a good one after its way, but his life there had been such a succession of miseries that he rebelled one day and refused to go any more. His earliest memories were clustered about this poor little cottage. He could see himself toddling about its broken steps, playing alone with a few broken pieces of china, which his fancy magnified into glorious toys. He remembered his first whipping, too. Tired one day of the loneliness which even the broken china could not mitigate, he had toddled out the side gate after a merry group of little black and yellow boys of his own age. When Grandmère Grabert, missing him from his accustomed garden corner, came to look for him, she found him sitting contentedly in the center of the group in the dusty street, all of them gravely scooping up handfuls of the gravelly dirt and trickling it down their chubby bare legs. Grandmère snatched at him fiercely, and he whimpered, for he was learning for the first time what fear was. "What you mean?" she hissed at him. "What you mean playing in the street with those niggers?" And she struck at him wildly with her open hand. He looked up into her brown face, surmounted by a wealth of curly black hair, faintly streaked with gray, but he was too frightened to question. It had been loneliness ever since, for the parents of the little black and yellow boys, resenting the insult Grandmère had offered their offspring, sternly bade them have nothing more to do with Victor. Then, when he toddled after some other little boys, whose faces were white like his own, they ran away with derisive hoots of, "Nigger! Nigger!" And again he could not understand. Hardest of all, though, was when Grandmère sternly bade him cease speaking the soft Creole patois that they chattered together, and forced him to learn English. The result was a confused jumble which was no language at all. That when he spoke it in the streets or in the school, all the boys, white and black and yellow, hooted at him and called him "white nigger, white nigger." He writhed on his cot that night and lived over all the anguish of his years until hot tears scalded their way down a burning face, and he fell into a troubled sleep wherein he sobbed over some dreamland miseries. The next morning Grandmère eyed his heavy, swollen eyes sharply, and a momentary thrill of compassion passed over her and found expression in a new tenderness of manner towards him as she served his breakfast. She, too, had thought over the matter in the night, and it bore fruit in an unexpected way.